flexibility how you're going to build the project and the order that you're going to build things in and kind of the way that you're going to build things. The end user organization has flexibility that they can choose what it is they want you to deliver. And during the life cycle of a project, their needs may change. As they move towards not just getting, boom, here's one release and that's all you see at the very end, but they move to every month we're either going to drop software to you or we're going to have a sit-down session with you and show you here's what we got done this month. They may see that there's a need for changes. Either the business may change or they may come in and be able to correct that, you know, this isn't quite what we were looking for. But at the same time, while testing and the things that we see from a testing standpoint seem a little bit different, it's also important to note that I think often when a development organization hears Agile, that a lot of the idea is, oh, this is great. I don't have to worry about all of these reports and forms and big documents I have to do. See, all Agile really focuses on is that I deliver code. And that's a fallacy. Agile does not mean that developers just, you know, kind of write code off the top of their head, that there's no design, that there's no documentation that goes on. It is still very important to have these elements that help us capture and understand decisions, that we have tools that capture and document requirements, and that we can still, while working in an Agile universe, have an ability to trace between this was the requirement and here's how I validated that that requirement was met or not. So certainly you'll see in different Agile practices slightly different sets of practices that they pull in. What you see is that those practices have to evolve or change depending on the size of the project you're on or the size team. Most Agile practices really focus on there's a small team of 10 to 12 people that are multifunctional, really smart people. They know how to design, they know how to test, they know how to code, they know how to work with the business user and gather requirements. And oh, by the way, part of that team is having a business user in with them so you can ask them questions at any point in time. Well, that works great, but as I scale out and I have a larger project, and now I may start to have a number of those small teams that work together, there's going to be good probabilities they have shared work, or that one team is building something another team relies on. In order to capture and share that information, it's got to be documented and put down somewhere. So a testing organization still is going to become a specialization in any organization of size and for any project that is complex at all. It is also going to have to deal with the fact that things are going to change over time, and this is going to drive a need for many organizations to shift from the de facto market leader in requirements management which would be Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, into actually utilizing a requirements management system. And you can get requirements management systems now that when you capture requirements, those will directly translate into test cases and help you build your test plan. And you can then track those into the tests that validate those business requirements. That's going to be fundamental for organizations to have tools that enable them to be efficient. Another challenge in an Agile world is that things are going all of the time. So not only are requirements changing, but there's this idea I'm on very short time loops. The typical thought, so in Scrum, which is one of the most popular methodologies, there's the idea that I have a 1-month sprint. A sprint is a block of time in which we are going to complete one iteration on the code, and we're going to deliver one block of functionality. And when that code is delivered, the idea is it is delivered ready to put into production. So Agile always stresses the fact that I never have a time period where, oh, we're going to catch up and fix all the bugs. However, when you look at that from a testing perspective, if the code is always changing, then it is, at what point do I get to a point where I can say, oh, now I've run all the tests and this code is good. Over a month of time, I'm always going to be catching up. So what I've found happens in most organizations, in teams that I've been on doing Scrum, I know speaking with Coverity themselves, they've seen similar things, which is most organizations end up shifting from a 4-week, 1-month kind of a schedule to something that's more like a 6-week schedule. And that may be 3 weeks of new functionality, 3 weeks of stabilization. Teams I've been on, we've had 4 weeks of coding, 2 weeks of stabilization. And that gives you a time period as a tester when the code isn't gaining new functionality and you're just closing defects. And that gives you some time to do minimal amounts of automation. It gives you the ability to really functionally test the code and make sure that you're working on something that's stable underneath you. That's really a requirement to make these things work at any scale at all. But the other thing that you have going on is that an Agile methodology really pushes the idea of quality to everyone on the team at all times. And every day, as you can see in Scrum, there is an everyday process that goes on. There's a 15-minute team meeting where each person identifies, what did I work on yesterday? What am I going to work on today? And is there anything that's blocking me? So I may be working on I was working on a customer lookup query yesterday, and I completed that. And today I'm going to be working on a order modification dialogue. And I'm blocked on, let's say, hooking in the customers to order entry because another team's component isn't on time. So that's going to allow the project manager to know, oh, here are places where maybe I need to go fix this because I can't work on what I'd like to be working on. And I know that every day, taking up just this short little blurb. But beyond that, what happens every day? There should be clear kind of interruption-free coding time. There needs to be time for design and working together and on design. There needs to be time each day for code review. So good teams have peer code review occur every day. Good teams utilize tools each day that help them analyze the quality of their code. In Agile, one of the other methodologies you see a lot of is test-driven development or the use of unit testing. So there's a large focus on practices that the developers should put in place to help drive quality into their code in the first place. But in order for that to happen, you have this baseline that's there that every day I know from a quality management perspective, what are our entry bars? What does the code have to do in order to be checked in for the build? I need automated build tools that can automate the process of building the code, checking the code, and moving me forward. I need change management tools that help me track and identify what has changed from day to day and why that's changed. And I should have a metrics tools set in place so that at a management layer, I understand what's going on. Where is my project? On this chart, we see across the entire life cycle. So if you put an Agile life cycle into the buckets that we typically think of going on in a waterfall traditional methodology, there are practices at each place, and all of these that I have listed here are driven around identifying and helping drive quality into the code. So at the project planning phase, it is understanding the fundamental business drivers and the business criteria for the application. It's understanding what the overall schedule looks like